Welcome to today's episode of the Omkar. On today's episode, I'm going to cover the Garud Puran, the Garuda Purana. It's a very important Hindu text, and it is often referred to as the Hindu Book of the Dead. So, without wasting too much time, because I'm not sure how long, if I will be able to do what I'm planning to do today, and how long it'll take. So let's get right into it. So what is the Garud Puran? And then, I'll just do a quick search here. The Hindu Book of the Dead PDF. See what comes up. Right? Because a lot of people, they reference the Garud Puran when they talk about what happens to the soul. So the Sanskrit text, Garuda Purana, is one of the 18 Mahapuranas in Hinduism. So what are the Mahapuranas? We'll just take a little sidetrack over there. So the Garud Puran, now this is again Christian history because they try to put it within their own Christian timeline. Was likely, and this is why you have to pay attention to these small details. So likely means they don't know when it was composed. In the first millennia CE, so 1,000 years before Christ. CE is after Christ, so current era, and BC is before current era, right? With significant expansions and revisions occurring through several centuries. So the thing about this now is revisions occurring over several centuries is because as customs change and as the norms change, that is why there will be revisions occurring. Scholars estimate the earliest Garuda Purana might be 4th to 11th century CE. So again, it dates. Now they are putting the Garud Purana as it's a recent text. Basically, that's what this is saying. It's not an ancient text. Its chapters deal encyclopedically with the highly diverse collection of topics, including cosmology, mythology, relationship between gods, ethics, good versus evil, various schools of Hindu philosophy, the theory of yoga, heaven and hell, karma and rebirth, ancestral rites, and stereological topics, rivers, geography, types of minerals, stones, testing of gems for their quality, list of plants and herbs, various diseases and their symptoms, various medicines, aphrodisiacs and prophylactics, astronomy, astrology, the moon, planets, and the Hindu calendar. And its base is architecture, home building, and essential features of a Hindu temple, rites of passage, charity, gift making, economy, thrift, the duties of a king, politics, and state officials, and their roles on how to appoint them, the genres of literature and rules of grammar, and the final chapters. And this is very important here because the Garud Purana is often seen as the Hindu Book of the Dead, right? So what Indian Book of the Dead? What is the Indian Book of the Dead? The Garuda Purana is an ancient sacred text of the Vedic tradition written 1,000 years ago, and it laid the foundation for the Hindu ideas about the afterlife and defined the culture of death and India in many centuries. Right? Again, bear in mind this is Christian. I always say, and I'll reiterate it every episode, most likely, that the internet is Christian based. So the history of the Garud Purana, it is given. It was written 1,000 years ago. And according to Wikipedia, it was likely composed, so they don't know. But the important part here that I want to point out is that the Garud Purana has been seen as the Book of the Dead in Hinduism. So for example, for that reason, a lot of people avoid the Garud Purana because they consider it to be inauspicious to read about the dead and the journey of the soul and these kind of things. But the Garud Purana, actually, I was quite surprised as well that the Garud Purana covers all these topics, right? The final chapters discuss how to practice yoga, Sankhya, and Advaita types, personal development, and benefits of self-knowledge. So all these topics are covered in the Garud Purana. Effectively, the Garud Purana is a book about how to live. So it is an instruction manual on how we should live. It gives complete knowledge on life. So if you want to get a code of conduct and advice on how to live, traditionally we look at the Ramayana and we look at Bhagavad Gita and we say, okay, we have to distill philosophy from it and apply it to our lives. But the Garud Purana is actually not that. The Garud Purana actually gives instruction on code of conduct. 2 sections of the Garud Purana actually covers the death and dying and the rites and rituals and these kind of things. But that's part of life, so it covers it. So that's it for what is the Garud Purana. I have here the Hindu sacred, the Book of the Dead. So the Puranas, the 18 Puranas. Let's see, they have a list here. So the Brahma Purana, the Padma Purana, the Vishnu Purana, Shiva Purana, Bhagavata, the most studied and popular of the Puranas, telling of Vishnu's avatars, Vaishnavism, okay. The Narada Purana, Markandeya Purana, Agni Purana, Bhavishya Purana, Brahma Vaivarta Purana, Linga Purana, Varaha Purana, Skanda Purana, well, that's a common one that we hear a lot, Vamana Purana, Kurma Purana, Matsya Purana, Garuda Purana, okay, and the Brahmanada, Brahmada Purana. So, so a list of the Puranas, right? And then over here we have other Puranas. The Upa Puranas, the 18 are 18 in number, and well, we have a whole list here. And that's interesting to note because we never hear too much about, well, we know about Vishnu Puran, the Shiva Puran. Today's topic is the Garud Puran, so let's not get too sidetracked. How to acquire copies of the Garud Puran. So the copies that I am going through today, I acquired on the internet. So you can purchase them online. So there are Puranas online. They have some versions simpler. So for example, this one. Now I just randomly Googled. I didn't filter through anything. So I just clicked the first link, the Garud Purana. Right? So online you have the Garud Purana, they list the chapters, right? Now this is interesting here. So the Garud Purana, and it has it as the Garud Purana, 106 pages, right? And it gives the contents of the Garud Purana as these 16 chapters, and all of these have to do with, so in this version of the Garud Purana that we are looking at here, the miseries of the sinful in the world and the other, or in this world and the other, the way of Yama, the torments of Yama, the kinds of sins which lead to hell, the signs of sins, the miseries of birth of the sinful. And everything here deals with the soul and dying, basically. So this is what, for example, we are being told the Garud Purana is. So everybody says the Garud Purana is about this, right? And we don't hear anything else. So it gives a list now. So it's up to the translator. So it's 106 pages. I actually heard people say that the Garud Purana is like 100 pages, and they know the entire, or they read the entire Garud Purana because they read this. And right, so it gives it in a list form, so it makes it easier for you to read. Footnotes, chapter 2, so it gives it in a list form, right? This, let's see, Forgotten Books website. With the free versions like this, you have some pages that are missing, right? So the pages that are missing, like this here, so this page is locked to free members. Purchase full membership to immediately unlock this page. So that's what you have to do to get full access, right? Now, if you are perfectly happy with reading and missing out some pages, then you could go ahead and skim through and decide if you want to purchase what is the full version, right? But there's a lot of information here already, and parts are obviously blanked out because you need to purchase full access, right? They would have a list. They would have what it is. So this is Manmanta Na Dut, edited and published by this person. All right. And so the plan today is to go through the chapters of the Garuda Purana. And you can see here where the full Garuda Purana. So let's see this other website. It says Garuda Purana Sanskrit English, free download. Most likely it's the same thing where certain pages are blocked off. Right, where you could download PDF versions. Right, so we just browse through here, flip through the pages. This one is MN Dut, so I think it's the same one, Mamamta Dut, as the other one, but this one has 1120 pages. So I think it's the full. I'm not sure. Oh, this one is different. So it's a different book from somebody else, right? So the point being, you have different versions of the Garuda Purana. And I actually have two versions here to make another point, which is this one, so again, available for purchase online in PDF form. Right? We have the whole table of contents, the full. Now this is a different version than the other one that I wanted to go through. And this one gives it in, let's say, the traditional way that you would read, and you have to extract the information from it, in terms of the way it's laid out in chapters and verses and these kind of things, right? But it's a translation. They don't have the Sanskrit or the translate from Sanskrit, transliterated from Sanskrit to Roman text, and then from there. So this one doesn't have it. And this one has 421 pages. The other one I have here is, so this is Motilal. The other one I have here is from Rediscover in India. So it's a different publisher, I believe it's a different author. Well, I think it's the same author, actually, the same translator. Right? Published in 1908. And the series Rediscover in India is 1987. Right? So I wanted to run through this one because this one it gives to me more detailed. It has 784 pages. So what I want to do from here is just quickly run through the table of contents of what is in the Garud Purana. So, like I say, it's something that I think is very valuable to the Hindus, well, to anyone really, And it is something that should be studied because it is meant to be an instruction manual for life. And I know, like, for example, like I mentioned, my parents, my mother would avoid reading the Garud Purana because it is considered a book of the dead. So let's just run through what is discussed in the Garud Purana. They list it in Roman numerals. So I'm not going to go through the number of the chapter just because, well, I'm not accustomed to Roman numerals. But it gives the page number. So, right. So table of contents of the Garud Purana. What is in the Garud Purana? And hopefully we can run through all because it's a lot of chapters. So discourse between Suba and Shaunaka and other rishis in the forest. Right, so Sutta promises to narrate the Garud Purana, sources of the Garud Purana. Vishnu charges Garuda to compose the Garud Purana. Sutta describes the subjects dealt in the Garud Purana. So the author describes what is in the Garud Purana. The order of universal creation described by Narayana to Rudra. Creation of Prajapatis, so the progeny of Daksha. Reincarnation of Daksha. Origin of the different races of men, the progeny, so the history of the human race. The description of sun worship, so Surya worship. Description of the mode of worship in Vishnu. The mode of spiritual initiation. The mode of worshiping the goddess Lakshmi. Description of Naya Vyuha, form of worship. Description of the order of observed in the course of worship. The prayer of Vishnu Panjaram. A brief discourse on yoga. Enumeration of 1,000 epithets of Vishnu. Description of the mode of meditating on Vishnu. Description of another form of sun worship. Mode of worshipping the death conquering deity. The Garudi Vidya, which is the cure for all kinds of snake bite. You'll see this pop up a lot, snake bite, in the Garud Purana. For some reason, they had a big fear of snakes. Mantra cures, so curative formulas, different effects of different mantras. Mode of worshipping Panch Avatar. I think it's Panch Avatar, 5-face manifestation of Shiva. The mode of worshipping Shiva, so Shiva worship basically deals with description of another form of Shiva worship. So the Garud Purana lists here Shiva worship, the worship of Ganapati, the Sandal worship. Sandal worship is worshipping or prayers to the Guru. The mode of performing the rites of Karanasya, location of the energies of different divinities in the different limbs by a votary, by dint of the occult. I think you'll have to read that to understand what that means. Rites of neutralizing the effects of snake venoms. The mode of worshipping the Gopala manifestation of Vishnu. Mantras to be used in connection with the worship of Sridhara of Vishnu. So all these is Vishnu, all these adoration of the 5 fundamental principles of the universe, worship of divine discuss, the mode of worshipping Hayagriva, manifestation of Vishnu, so basically Vishnu worship, right? Gayatri worship. So I'm trying to summarize here because it's a lot and I want to cover some of the topics in here. So Shiva worship, Maheshwara worship, enumeration of diverse incantations and mantras, so different types of mantras. How to contemplate God, so how to meditate on God. Characteristic marks of the Shaligram, so what to look for in a Shaligram. Adoration of the deity presiding over the homestead, so Vastu. Essential features of a divine temple or a palace, okay. How to install divine images. Discourse of yoga and acts of piety, so how to worship. Penance, how to perform penance. traits of conduct of men marked by several kinds of nidhis. I don't know what is a nidhi. In Hinduism, nidhi is a Sanskrit term for a treasure, often referring the 9 priceless treasures believed to belong to Kubir, Hindu god of wealth. Okay, so people who possess the 9 traits of wealth, several kind of wealth, right? Description of geography of different countries of the earth, according to India. So you might get a earth history in that. These are geography, cosmogony of hell and the nether regions. So, well, the translator was a bit influenced by the Christian concept of hell here, but say what? Positions and dimensions of the sun, astrology, discourse of the periodic influence of different planets. So that's, well, what we call Patra, right? Coming down. Remember, we're covering 700 pages, so I'm trying to let this be under half an hour, and I have a few minutes remaining, right? Brief discourse on the auspicious marks and inauspicious marks of males. A brief discourse on the auspicious or inauspicious marks on the person of females. I found this very interesting, so I wanted to mention it. I found it very funny that this was in the Garud Purana. The auspicious marks on men and women. The reason I found it funny, so according to the Garud Purana, the auspicious marks of a girl to look for. So have curly hair, a round face, deep navel, increases her family. A woman whose color is like that of gold, whose hands are red, is called Padmini. Such a woman born 1 in 1,000 is the personification of chastity. The woman who has uneven hairs, round eyes, becomes widowed and always unfortunate. A face like a full moon is effulgent like the rising sun, has expensive eyes, and I don't know what is Vimva like lips, enjoys happiness. Many lines indicate misery. One having so it describes the features of a woman, right? But I found it funny. Like, the auspicious signs of a woman are cool and high breasts, copper-colored nails, beautiful feet, marks of a fish, gold, lotus, discus, and plowshare on the soles and palms which do not perspire, a beautiful hip without hairs, thighs like a trunk of an elephant, most excellent and capacious buttock like a fig leaf, spacious and deep navel, and chest and breasts shorn of hair. So no, not a hairy chest, right? So I just throw that in there because it's like I find that was funny. That it in the Garud Purana that to look for a woman with a hip with a waist like a fig leaf and capacious buttock. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, I'm at 26 minutes here, so I don't think I'll go through all this today. But the point being here, and because I'm reaching the end of this episode, is that the Garud Purana is not just a book about the dead. It is not just a book about what happens to the soul. Oh, we got to an interesting part here: how to test different kinds of precious stones. Is this section, right? And then description of different rites, merit and performing different rites, and these kind of things, right? Names of the Manus, and the Devtas, and Saptarishis, all these things. But I wanted to cover that is not just about worship, because look over here, duties of a householder, right? Origin of mixed castes and the 5 great yajnas and Sandhya rites, purification of defiled articles, gift making and charity, so how to give charity, mode of performing Shrad, exorcism. This is, I guess the soul part, rites of atonement, impurities, rules of conduct, right? Traits in servants, right? Different vrats. Then we come down. This section gives the description of cures for all diseases. So they go through all this is diseases, how to give cures for different types of ailments, right? Therapeutic properties of drugs. So there's a large section. As a large section is dedicated towards death and the journey of the soul, there's a larger section in the Garud Purana dedicated to medicine and healing. All right. So the same. So even the author got fed up of listing all the medicines. So the same continued. So at this point, the various other recipes, same continued. Medical treatment for cuts, wounds, acid burns. All these recipes are cures. Prophylactic. I don't know what that word is. So yeah, I think I'm at my time there. So I got to the end, but as you can scroll through and see, this part is on meditation, the essentials of yoga, synopsis of the Gita. So the Garud Purana, at the end, as I close off today's episode, is not just a book about the death and dying. It is not just the Hindu book of the dead, as it is being sold or marketed as. That is part of the book. So in this one here, this is a different version, listed a different way. But for those, right? So you can see this one is much clearer. In terms of the chapters, but the chapters, so description of diseases. So that's why I went through the other one, because, for example, description of diseases. In the other one, you saw the entirety of the extent of the description of diseases, right? And cures. So sacred rites, like they just give a compressed version here of what is in Garud Purana. So, long story short, as I was saying, as I close off, the Garud Purana is not just a book about death and dying. It covers a very wide range of topics, and it is an instruction manual for every Hindu to follow when it comes to life and living. You may not practice everything that you read, and some of it, quite frankly, may be boring and inconsequential to you. But as a form of knowledge and an instruction manual on how to help you get through or understand Hinduism, especially in understanding the complexity of Hinduism, the Garud Purana, I would say, is a very essential book that should be read. And that's my time. And I hope you enjoyed this brief breakdown. I apologize that I had to really skim through the table of contents there, but a lot of it was repetitive. So I hope to see you next week on this program. Thank you for joining me. My name is Omkar, and thank you for sharing some time with me on the Omkar.